It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer, and today we have a beer from Salt Beer Factory. I like beers from Salt Beer Factory. Just looked over my left shoulder for it. It's on my right shoulder. This is their single hop series of beers, which you will generally find in ASDA, and this is their Chinook. 5% ABV, 440 milliliter can. Hazy and hoppy in the description there. Lots of the salt beers that released into supermarkets have been of a really high standard. Just been a big fan of their beers, but the single hop series for me has stood out. They brought out lots of different versions of the single hop beers into ASDA, and this is the newest one, and this is for me kind of like one of the older school hops. Chinook. Back in the day, we used to call it the 3 C's. If you brewed a beer with the 3 C's, you were generally going to brew a good IPA. Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. You don't hear about the 3 C's so much anymore because probably New England IPA took over. New England IPA was more about that soft middle, that peach and mango middle, rather than kind of like bold, bitter IPAs, but they're making a comeback. They're definitely making a comeback, and I hope this is part of that comeback, the Chinook hop. Hopefully this beer's got a little bit of bitterness to it. There's only one way to find out. Let's get the beer out into a glass and see what we get. A little bit of smoke on the can opening. Beer in the glass. Oh, look at that. So we do have a haze. It is a hazy beer. Part of a 3 for 4 deal in ASDA. If you bought the can on its own, it's £3. If you bought it as part of a 4 for 3, you're going to pick this up for £2.25 a can. Now, bearing in mind the other single hop beers from the Salt Beer series in ASDA have been terrific. £2.25 a can for a single hop Chinook. It's not bad going, is it? It's pretty good actually. So good levels of carbonation as you rock the beer back and forth. It's hazy, it's straw coloured. There's not much in the way of sediment in the bottom of the glass. Let's get the aroma on the beer then. Yeah, and it's that lovely big, bold, hoppy, pineapple, grapefruit. Pine needle. Blimey, there was a time on the channel where I always used to talk about pine needle, like walking through a forest, picking up some pine needles and rubbing them on your hands and getting that kind of, that piney kind of residue from the pine needles. You get this from the Chinook hop. This is like reviewing a beer from 6-7 years ago. It smells great. Let's dive in. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, that's good. That is really good. Stone the Crows. Stone the Crows. What a beer. What a beer. Oh yeah, it's still going, it's still producing. It's like a car with a lot of horsepower. It's just still delivering. It's still able to go further on the miles per hour accelerator, the rev panel, if you like, whatever you want to call it, than like maybe some other beers. I like the fact, this is what I like about kind of like West Coast IPAs, is that they just don't finish in the middle. Whereas a New England IPA will kind of like finish in the middle, and it will just kind of like be all nice and soft and fluffy, and this just is still producing flavour now, 10-20 seconds after I tasted the beer. Yeah, bring back, and they are, gladly, the West Coast IPA. I'll cheers to that. What a beer. So what am I getting then? Great drinkability, very refreshing beer at 5% ABV. A little bit of sweet malt coming through. A little bit of slight... No, I'm going to say wafer. I was very, very tempted then to say biscuits, but I always seem to say biscuits, and it's not there. It's more of a light kind of wafer flavour coming through in terms of the sweetness of the malt. That kind of like paves the way then for the hops to come in, which are like slicing a grapefruit in half and getting that grapefruit in your face with some sugar on it. Orange peel, kind of like grapefruit, pine needles in the beer. In the beer, it's a great beer. And then you have this kind of, where the sweetness was over here from the wafer, then you have that kind of bitterness charging through on the back end, and that bitterness is offering up flavours of grapefruit and orange peel, but then it's bitter. There's a lovely bitterness here on the back of the palate. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I've said it before, and I've said it again, ASDA here they've either employed somebody as their beer buyer that really knows their stuff. Whether they, like every single supermarket has a beer buyer. Lidl, Aldi, Tesco. I always complain about them. I always moan about them. But I think the guys at ASDA, whether they knew much about it or not, they've employed someone, I think, that has a general great knowledge about beer and where beer's going, and he's a beer enthusiast. Whoever, I might be talking to him right now, he might be watching. Whoever this person is, he's a superman in the beer world, because most of the supermarkets, Sainsbury's, I'm not really that bothered, apart from the German Weiss beers and the German beers that are in Sainsbury's. I'm not going to travel to Sainsbury's for the craft beer there. There's a couple of decent German beers and Belgian beers in Tesco, but I'm not overly going to drive to a Tesco for their cans of craft beer. I find it all really boring. But ASDA, now that changes everything, doesn't it? You're thinking to yourself, I need some sausages, I need some pizza, I need whatever, milk, bread. Oh, where do I go? I might get a couple of beers while I'm there. And this is the clever thing about it. You don't want to go to, say, Morrison's to buy your cheese and your butter and your milk, and then go to ASDA for your beer. It doesn't make sense. So if you were a Tesco or a Morrison's or a Sainsbury's shopper, you're immediately now going to be thinking, I'll just go to ASDA. I'll buy all the great, because the beers that have launched into ASDA as of April 2024 have been terrific. They've been really, really good. I'm on my 4th or 5th different review now. Everyone has been fantastic so far. I'm heading to ASDA for my milk and my cheese and my bread and my pizza and my fish fingers. And while I'm there, I'm going to pick up some great beer. Yeah, well done to the ASDA beer buyer for just being on the ball. Just being on the ball and knowing your stuff. Rating for this salt Chinook then. Craft mastery, down to earth delivery. And then they talk about the hop Chinook. So if that focuses, pause the video, you can have a read of that if you want. But my rating for the beer, it looks good, it smells good, it tastes wonderful. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. Please put your comments in the comments box, subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews, give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom, cheers.